I hope that Samah's synopsis and quick, short introduction to the various writers will whet your appetites and that you will rush to buy the books afterwards. And the plays, I have to tell you, are very, very good. And we would hope that we could see them all in production here in Melbourne at some stage, not too distant future. Here's a wish. But Stephen will tell us something now about the difficulties of getting these plays into production in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll just follow up on Anne's comment and mention for those of you who haven't read plays, most of us go to watch productions of plays rather than read them, but for lovers of literature who read plays, it's very much a page-turning experience. And the reason is, in theater we have somewhere between an hour and a half to 2.5 hours to tell our story, which means it's very concise. And it also means that in drama, what drives a play are characters in conflict. And so reading a play very much is an experience of characters in conflict, scene by scene from beginning to end. And that's what delivers the suspense and the experience of reading plays. So don't be afraid to read plays. I would like to thank Anne and Philip for sponsoring our event at St. John's, as well to the AJDS and Sivan, and also to acknowledge the honor of speaking here on original Aboriginal land, something that in Canada we acknowledge more and more before our theater events. Double exposure plays of the Jewish and Palestinian diasporas is very much a groundbreaking work. It is the first English language anthology worldwide in any genre of drama, prose, or poetry by Jewish and Palestinian writers. It challenges one of the last lingering thematic taboos to permeate most of Western theater. Now, Samah and I make that bold claim with humility and regret because we wish it weren't the case. But despite the fact that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been the most inflammatory ongoing regional conflict of the past 70 years, most major theaters from North America to Europe to Oceania have refused to solicit, commission, or produce plays on the subject. Now, this de facto boycott, it has not been a conspiracy. This has been fueled for decades by prejudice, ignorance, and timidity. But there has been a systematic attempt, particularly in recent years, to censor produced plays critical of the Israeli occupation, particularly plays penned by diaspora writers of both descent, including several in our anthology. But as difficult as it is for Jewish diaspora playwrights to mount plays that are critical of the occupation, it's nothing compared to the challenges of Palestinian diaspora playwrights, the degree of prejudice that they experience. Samah mentioned the example of her own play and the problems and the challenges in the censorship campaign against Tales of a City by the Sea. Other examples in our anthology, 21 Positions, was commissioned by the Guthrie Theater, a major theater in America, commissioned Naomi Wallace. Naomi Wallace is a very accomplished American playwright. Her work, she is one of only 2 American playwrights whose works have been incorporated into the permanent repertoire of Comédie Française, the National Theatre of France. And she wrote this play with a great Palestinian playwright, Abdel Fattah Bousrar, from the Ada refugee camp, who has created a wonderful theater center and cultural center outside of Bethlehem, and along with Lisa Schlesinger. Now, the Guthrie commissioned this play, and yet they refused to produce it, clearly stating for thematic reasons, not artistic reasons. That is political censorship. An artistic director that I know, Ari Roth, who was longtime artistic director, 17 years, who built one of the finest American Jewish theaters in America, Theater J in Washington, D.C., was fired for having the audacity of producing a couple of plays critical of the occupation, some of which were penned by Israeli playwrights. Can Stage, one of the major regional theaters in Toronto, announced at the beginning of its theaters will have a launch for its new season where they announce what is coming up for the next year. And so they declared that the play, My Name is Rachel Corrie, was going to be on the next season, until shortly after that, they announced that they were dropping the play. And the artistic director said, I went to New York, I saw the play, the reaction of the audience was, it just, what seemed to work on the page didn't work on the stage. And the problem was that the major Jewish donor of that theater, whose name is on a plaque at the atrium of the theater, opposed the production of the play. And probably the most well-known example is that of the Jewish American Pulitzer Prize winning playwright Tony Kushner, Angels in America. City University of New York, the board decided to award Tony Kushner an honorary degree for reasons that I think I don't have to explain to all of you tonight. And yet, anti-Palestinian, pro-Israeli zealots, particularly one person on the board, labeled him a self-hating, anti-Semitic Jew because of his criticism of the occupation. And so the board voted to rescind the honorary degree that they had announced they were awarding him, until a public outcry, not only in New York but across America, forced them to rescind the rescinding and give him the award, the honorary degree, which he accepted quite graciously. So these are some of the challenges that we face, but I will say very clearly that many of these censorship campaigns are backfiring, as Samah described the great success of Tales of a City. And Ari Roth has mounted a new theater, Mosaic Theater in Washington, which is just taking off like a rocket ship. And so these censorships are campaigns because people don't like censorship. And the success of our plays that are being staged by smaller independent theaters, that really demonstrates the growing public thirst for plays that dare to tackle the conflict on stage. And now we can see a bit of a change in some of the larger theaters that are coming on board. For example, the National Theatre in London and Lincoln Center Theatre putting on the play Oslo. And very much the anthology, it's a reflection of these changing times. But the price that we dramatists pay trying to mount these plays, to jump over these hurdles, to get these plays produced, they pale in comparison to the death and destruction that so many face in this seemingly ongoing, seemingly endless conflict over birthright and homeland. For Jewish writers who tackle this conflict, we must avoid cultural appropriation. But if we don't dare to cross the cultural divide and dare to do this with both diligence and mutual respect, and create stories with anecdotal accuracy, delivered by authentic characters true to their times, their place, and their culture, then we will fall short of theater's imperative to change society one play at a time. My play Sperm Count premiered shortly after 9/11, a few weeks after the war in Afghanistan was launched, a very politically tense time in London. The theater received 2 anonymous bomb threats demanding that the play not be staged. The cast, the crew, the theater all met together without me, and they bravely decided to defy that threat, and fortunately the play went on without incident. Sperm Count is a play that uses male infertility as a multi-layered metaphor where culture, gender, and generations all pinball off of each other. The cultural aspect of it, in terms of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is personified by a sperm character, a figment of a Jewish writer's imagination, who pricks and probes at him, trying to force him to deal with his fear of fatherhood and the pain of growing up with an intolerant father. And one of my characters, his father, Jacob, is a Holocaust survivor. And Jacob is adamantly an intolerant racist towards Palestinians. But there is complexity to his character. The point of what I'm making here is that I have had to deal with the Holocaust in this play. That's why I created his character as a Holocaust survivor. When Samah and I began our tour, our North American tour, the first event was in New York City. A wonderful event organized by a theater communication group, the major publishers of American drama. And the day after that event was Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I said something at that event, and I repeated it in Montreal and at the Ottawa Writers Festival, and I'll say it again. The Holocaust is something that is deeply embedded in the psyche of Jews, for reasons I don't have to elaborate. And that's part of the reason why I had to deal with this in my play. But the other reason is that far too often, the Holocaust has been used as a fear-mongering tool to rationalize the brutal Israeli occupation of Palestine. So yes, on Remembrance Day and every year, Jews around the world have to shout never again. But when it comes to that occupation, we also have to say loud and clear, not by us. And for diaspora Jews, not in our name. I'll just end by saying that Samah and I wrote in our preface that our job as dramatists is to shed light on what blinds us with fear, and to pen plays that hopefully contribute, however modestly, to making this a more just and peaceful world. So I thank you for coming and joining us this evening.